What's up, guys? Welcome to Golden Ticket to seeing history, teaching history, knowing history, all about history. Here bright and early on Saturday morning here at Greenwood Cemetery in downtown Orlando, Florida. So this, if you've had a chance to be in Orlando, you've driven around many of the communities, and you may or may not have noticed some of the prominent names of the neighborhoods. And there's a reason behind that. Those names are named after some of the most prominent people who settled in the Orlando area in the beginning of its time. So, the reason why that is that many of those famous people have decided to make their final resting place here at Greenwood Cemetery in downtown Orlando, Florida. You can hear the cars hustling, bustling from one of the major interstates, not even a third of a mile away from here. You have the executive airport that's barely a mile away, if that, and then about 3 or 4 miles is the international airport. So it's right down here in the heart of Orlando. And there's a lot of people here. We're going to look at some of them today. One of the most famous ones is actually the grandson of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. Do you remember the name of Francis Eapes? He's monumental. He was a mayor of Tallahassee, Florida, and he's also one of the main people that led to the creation of Florida State University. So, the entire Eapes Shine family, a very large percentage of that family, has a family plot here at Greenwood Cemetery that we're going to be looking at here very soon. So it's interesting to think, going all the way up from Virginia, DC, Maryland area, and find someone who's that connected, that close to one of our founding fathers, literally steps away from downtown Orlando. But besides just thinking about famous people related to historical figures, there's a lot of other celebrities. There are businessmen and women, and there are professional athletes. So if you've ever had a chance to come to downtown Orlando, you may or may not have noticed that there's a very historic baseball field that's placed just right behind Camping World Stadium, which is the stadium that we have here in downtown Orlando. Football games happen there, monster jams happen there. You name it, it has become a megaplex of sports entertainment in recent years. So, right behind this stadium is a small historic baseball field. And this small historic baseball field is paying homage to a very, very, very well-known person here in Orlando. Is the suspense getting to you yet? I know it is. So I will not withhold you any further. The gentleman we're talking about is right here. That gentleman is the name Tinker. Joseph B. Tinker. Tinker Field. You may or may not have even noticed that that baseball field actually had a name, or that the name was connected to somebody. Joseph Tinker was a famous member of the baseball's greatest double play combinations, from Tinker to Evers to Chance, a big leaguer from 1902 through 1916 with the Chicago Cubs and Cincinnati Reds, and the Chicago Feds manager. Cincinnati from 1913 and Chicago National League in 1916. He was a shortstop on the Cubs team that won the pennants in 1906, 1907, 1908, and 1910. And then there is some of his family plot here as well. So if you ever wondered why that baseball field is called Tinker Field, it's named after this gentleman, Joseph Tinker. So next time you're traveling through downtown Orlando and you drive past Camping World Stadium and you see that little baseball field in the back, just know that this gentleman here that it's named after. Also, that Tinker Field was used in a lot of films as well. There's a film, Parenthood, with Steve Martin, whereas there's a famous scene in the beginning where he takes and he has a flashback. He falls asleep, and he dreams he fell asleep as a child, and then he wakes up as an adult at the end of the game. And that all happened at Tinker Field. Parenthood was a movie that was filmed across Central Florida all the way up to Gainesville. I did a video on parenthood previously. But if you do have an opportunity to watch the parenthood video, know that I need to go back and to fix a couple things. There was a slight mistake. So the auditorium at the University of Florida was used as a filming location for the film Parenthood with Steve Martin. However, the specific scene that I called out was not the specific scene that was actually filmed there. So I misspoken and said that it was the final performance scene in the auditorium. Unfortunately, I was misinformed on that. It's actually a school here in downtown Orlando that I'm going to try to have a chance to go to if possible. That takes and actually is where that scene, the sun's a little bright, where that scene was actually filmed. However, the auditorium at the University of Florida was used in Parenthood for a couple very, very, very iconic scenes. One of which mainly occurred in the exteriors. The graduation scene. When Steve Martin's son takes and graduates from college, valedictorian, amazing. Then we have a really big shift in the events that occur in the film. You have the clock tower scene, whereas Steve Martin's son's character is up on top of the clock tower as a sniper. So it's a really big, strange change in turn of events that occurs. So Century Tower was used for that tower scene, and also the exteriors of the auditorium were used for the graduation scene. The interiors were not used. The interiors were, however, used in an Anthony Hopkins film, Last Resort. If you watch the beginning scenes of it, I believe you can watch it on YouTube. It is available there. Literally the first 3 minutes, you can pick out the organ that I showed in the video. It's in the background. So they were doing this whole speech thing, they had a podium set up, Anthony Hopkins was talking, and they completely just decided to not even cover up the organ in the back. So you have this whole speech thing going on, this organ in the back. So definitely check that out. My brain is mush today. It was actually not Anthony Hopkins. I was actually looking at something else with Anthony Hopkins that was filmed on the same time. It actually wasn't Anthony Hopkins, it actually was Sean Connery. So Sean Connery was the individual who was giving the speech at the podium. See right here, this is the Shine Eaps family plot. These are all descendants of former President Thomas Jefferson. plot is laid as well. Francis was the grandson of the third president of the United States. If you need some additional assistance in finding these locations, because this is my first time ever coming to the cemetery, so I'm not really well coordinated where I'm at. Now on my way walking back to where my car is at, I realized that this could have been a lot easier. So right over there behind me where that tree is, that's where July Perry is. Right over here is Joseph Tinker. So where I was just at with Joseph Tinker, literally probably 150 feet, if that, is where July Perry's final resting place is. If you're looking for Francis Eaps' final resting place, it's further in the back of the cemetery. It's back by the more war area. There's plenty of graves here that are very old, some of which have actually started to fall apart, which is quite sad. It'd be nice if we could find ways of restoring them, fixing them. I wish I was more well versed in the cleaning processes of how to clean graves, because many of these graves deserve to be cleaned. There's one more thing I want to show you before we leave, and it's the fountain, the former fountain of Lake Eola. It's another prominent landmark that you can look at if you're trying to figure out where you're at in the cemetery. So, let's look at that. So back to where that tree's broken, I don't know if you can see it. That's the tree branch. That's where the final resting place of Francis Eaps is at. That's also where you find some of the more prominent people. Here we have some of the war section over here as well. And the last thing I want to show you is right here. This was the original fountain that used to adorn Lake Eola, which has become a fundamental, prominent focal point of Orlando. When you see the city beautiful, you see Lake Eola. You see that fountain. You see the lands. You see the cityscape in the background. This was the original one. This one used to adorn the center of Lake Eola. It has now been replaced with a more modern one that actually looks very similar to this one, but it was recasted, so it's slightly different. But this is the original one. So if you want to see a piece of Orlando history, you have one right there. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I'm going to come back. I need to search out some more specific ones, because finding graves not very well detailed when it comes to a lot of famous graves. One, they're really good in a lot of places, really famous people. However, there's a lot of times where individuals are famous and they're not even disclosed as being famous. For example, July Perry does not pop up as a famous grave on Find a Grave, even though he is the victim of one of the biggest forms of racial violence in Florida history. There's also a few other individuals that are famous to some degree. Their name is precedes them, that are not acknowledged with that. So finding out where some of these individuals are is becoming a little bit more difficult. However, I am committed. We are going to find it. There's a lot of new grave pictures. We're going to be doing videos, filming locations, historical places, historical events, markers, you name it. There's a lot in store. So if you want to give me some guidance, some direction, maybe some things you want me to look at that maybe hasn't been covered much in the City Beautiful, Central Florida, or anywhere in general, then I will make a plan to do so. As always, continue to seek out the history in film. Till next time.